It's pretty, we kind of switched gears a little bit. I am going to be moving what we had planned for this week to next week. And then I've decided to give you Wednesday and Friday an opportunity to, what is that background noise?
I walked in, sorry.
Can you believe the Welsh got quarantined for the third time?
Oh, I can believe it, let me tell you. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
So now I lost my train of thought. Okay, so what we're gonna do this week, I moved to next week so that we can actually still do a flower dissection and actually talk about bees and pollinators and their connection to flower evolution. So we're gonna move what we're gonna do this week to next week. This week, because we have a geranium project due on Friday, and next Friday we have our River Lab project due. I want to make sure that you actually have time to put these finishing touches, get your data organized, get your charts made. So tomorrow and Friday are going to be work times for you to work on your geranium project, to work on your river project. And these are group projects, so at least it's not all on you, or at least hopefully it's not all on you unless you're by yourself, which is great. But I am briefly going to talk about each today just to make sure that everyone's on the same page about what needs to be included and where my expectations kind of lie with this goofy year that we've had so far. And I mean, me being out for a fourth quarantine is a great example of how weird this year has been. And then I do have a brief slideshow that I'm going to have you go through because I'm going to be talking about these other projects. The last thing you want to do is listen to me extend on into the last part. So I'm just going to have you work through the slides on your own once I finish talking about these projects. I will talk tomorrow about what my expectations are for your workday on Wednesday and Friday. And then as I'll talk about on Friday, I'll talk about what next week is going to look like. But hopefully I'm back by then. So we'll see what happens. For today, I'm going to go into present mode so you can see my screen. Let me know if you can't see me presenting because I'm pinned or something.
Hey, I'm going to take quick attendance here.
All right, you do that.
I don't see Alex Hello. Savannah? Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. And then Will S. Oh, thank you. Cole S. Thank you. I don't see Lily Walker. What about Joseph W?
He talked to me, but he is absent.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. Okay, go ahead. All yours.
Okay. So can you see my presenting thing, my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we are going to do is we're going to start by talking through the geranium project. So to do that, we have to actually scroll all the way down back to Unit 1 since we've been doing this for almost 9 weeks. And we're going to go to Week 4, Wednesday, geranium study, go view assignment. And this will initially look a little bit different for you, but if I go to instructions, this is exactly what you're going to see. And then you're going to click on the geranium study. So because there's been people that have been quarantined or people that have been out for random things, people's data and how much data and how many jars they had or the data, all of that is going to look significantly different from group to group. And it's really, really good news that we did do this as a group, because if you had done this individually, a lot of people would be missing significant amounts of data for this particular lab. So what this is going to be, or what you should have, and you can use this Google Doc as your project to turn it in if you want. You can make your own Google Doc. You can make a Google slide. You can make it what you can present this to me or turn this into me, you and your group, any way you so choose, as long as I have this information. So hopefully, being that this is a hypothesis section, that you have already came up with 3 useful hypothesis questions that we would have done before this project began. It was a long time ago, but hopefully you have it done. If not, obviously you weren't listening, or you forgot, or you were quarantined, or who knows what. But if you have not gotten this done, or your group has not gotten this done, please make sure that you come up with 3 hypothesis questions as if you hadn't done this and hadn't expected anything, what your initial thoughts would be. And the same kind of goes for these pre-lab questions here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pre-lab questions. Hopefully you have those answered kind of as a starter to jump us into this lab. If not, act as if you had not done the lab yet. What would your thoughts have been for these? As far as your data collection goes, if you had been in class for every single data collection we had done, you should have 4 weeks of data. So you should have week 1, week 3, week 5, and week 7. I highly doubt there might be 1, maybe 2 people or 2 groups that have that situation happen. So I'm more expecting there to be like 2 weeks, 3 weeks of data. If you have you have a week or 1 less or no data at all in this case, then I will be giving you data and you will be coming up with conclusion questions for this project. That way you actually have something to do and something to look at, and you can actually use your ecology that we've been looking at and put it towards some conclusion stuff. But if you have 2, 3, 4 weeks, awesome, great. So you should have pH of your water. You should have your temperature of your water, your nitrates, your turbidity, all recorded in this data table. And whether that is with you or with your partner, it doesn't matter, as long as someone in that group makes sure that this gets turned in with all of your partner's names on it. You should also have this data table filled in. So kind of the same situation, except this one we're looking specifically at life that has evolved, or not evolved, but grown and developed in our jarariums. So in this column here, you should have yes or no. And then in this column here under identification of life, you should be listing what you believe the identification of that life that you have in your jar is. And if you're not for sure, then you should go click into this. It's a link, and it takes you to a pretty easy document that shows pictures and images and description. It provides descriptions of the life that you might witness in a typical Wisconsin pond ecosystem. On these data tables, both of them have sample 1, sample 2. Because of our COVID situation, I'm going to say this over and over, and it's like beating a dead horse. Because of our COVID situation, most people did not ever have time to collect a second sample. I'm not going to count that against you this year. So if you have 1 week or 1 sample, great. That's all I need for now. If you did do 2 samples, I would like you to include both sets of data for both samples, because I want to see your comparisons between the 2. So now you've got this data. If you only have 1, maybe 2 weeks of data, and you would like another week of data, what I would tell you is either tomorrow on Wednesday or on Friday, probably better tomorrow, that you would come in to ecology or in your flex time, come in, grab some water or a sample and run these tests, because everything you need is still sitting on that cart in the room you guys are currently in. So you could always run another test if you'd like to see more data for your jar, so it's easier to make your conclusions and write your question, or write your conclusions and come up with any of the information you need. But right now, hopefully you're past the data collection part. What you need to include for me are 4 charts, 4 graphs, and let's make this as easy as possible. So let's just make a Google Sheet. Don't do this by hand unless you're really, really artsy and are really good by making graphs by hand. I rather doubt it, because a lot of the graphs I've seen from freshmen to seniors are usually pretty sloppy. So make this easy on yourself, and let's just make a Google Sheet. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now, just to make sure everyone's on the same page with this. So when you open up this Google Sheet, you're going to hit blank, and this is really simple. And because of this Google Meet, my internet's going a little slow, so it's going to take a second for it to open up. But once it does, we're just going to make a simple data table that we can then use and turn it into a graph that you guys can attach to whatever document, PowerPoint, whatever you're doing when you turn this in. So what we're going to do, because if we go back to our Jararium stuff, we were mainly looking at weeks. So I'm going to start, and this would be a good idea for you too. My first column should be weeks. And then just for simplicity, I'm going to go 1, 3, and 5, just to kind of get the basics. That'll all depend on what weeks you did collect data for, but for simplicity. Column 2 will be pH. And I'm just going to make up my pH values. You should already have them. So let's say we had 7 in week 1, 7.3 in week 2, and then maybe I did something really terrible to my jar and it jumps all the way up to an 8. Now, once I have this data, all I need to do is highlight this whole data table, go to Insert, Chart, and it's going to take a second, but it's going to generate a graph for the data that you just input. So it's still thinking. So here would be a graph that would work for that section of the project. And you would just need to make sure you include this with what you turn in. So this would be your pH test. If you did 2 samples, and there's only a couple groups that actually did, if you did 2 samples, you would just add a second column for pH, and I can walk you through later for those groups on how to do that. But once you are done with your pH and you've got your graph, you can easily just delete this column, and then you could put temperature in here and write in your temperature values. And pretty simply or pretty quickly, you could have 4 fairly easy to read and understand graphs that are neat and useful that you can turn in for your project. So that takes care of this section here. As far as this photo collection section, again, this is one of those things that just kind of got put on the wayside because of COVID. So if you took photos and you were paying attention to this section, great. I'd love to see your photos and your progression of your jar development. If you didn't take any photos, that's okay. I'm not going to count it against you this year, but if you have them, great. I'd like to see them, but if you don't, not the end of the world. The main chunk of your time, once you have your data and your graphs put together, and this would be something that I would strongly use Wednesday or suggest using Wednesday or Friday, is you are going to make me write me 3 paragraphs that discuss in detail the information, the data you collected, what you saw happening in your jar over the 4 to 5 weeks of time, well, almost 2 months of time that we were collecting data on these jars. So I've included, 8 bullets on things that you can easily write 3 paragraphs on. Please do not give me just short, choppy sentences. You easily can write much more than that. If for some reason that's a problem or an issue for you, please contact me so that we can make some adjustments or whatever that we need to. But this should be more than enough bullet things that you should be able to come up with 3 paragraphs, especially in a group, that it shouldn't be much of a concern. If there's something like you really want to talk about that's not bulleted in this section, by all means, you can jump and talk about some other stuff that you thought was interesting that it might not, or ideas that you think are important that might not be listed in this section here. But all I need is 3 paragraphs that are well thought out and well discussed to a high extent or a high degree what we looked at. Okay. This will be 10 summative points and it will go in the grade book. So if you're, maybe your project for Unit 1 wasn't super well done, you never made corrections to that. Maybe you didn't do as well on the test as you had hoped. This is an excellent opportunity for you to get some extra points that are summative and jump your grade up very quickly. Any questions on the gerarium stuff? I know that was a lot of information thrown at you in a very short amount of time. So like I said, you'll have tomorrow and Friday to kind of work on those or work on that. I do want to briefly discuss our other lab, our river study, just to make sure everyone's on the same boat as far as that goes, because that'll be due not this Friday, but next Friday, the last Friday before Christmas, so we can get that turned in so you don't have to worry about it over the break. So we got to go up a little bit to Unit 2, week 8, Wednesday, Apple River. And I'm going to open up the Google Doc here. So this I'll go through a little bit quicker than the gerarium stuff, but I want to make sure that everyone remembers what some of the requirements are for this and what this is going to look like now. With this one is more data driven than necessarily having a bunch of analyzing going on. But you should have, hopefully in your group, you should have these two pre-lab questions kind of done. If not, those shouldn't take too long for you to do. But mainly we're going to start here with week 1 week 1 data collection. So this is when we focus more on water temperatures of the river, time it took to travel, whatever distance you had selected. I know I have 12 feet there. That was kind of my recommended distance, but some of you might have recorded other distances, and that is fine. Depth of river, and then the current of the river. So if you haven't calculated the current yet, as long as you have time and distance traveled, you can calculate current in half a second. And once you have all these trials done, you should have 4, then you're going to go through and just average these out for me. The second part of week 1 was just observations, initial thoughts, initial things you saw or witnessed while we were at the river. So pertaining to like the riverbank, the river floor, surrounding ecosystems, and then human interference or human effects that were going on at the location on the river that we had visited. You're going to then take that information, and somebody or both or 2 people in your group, as long as this gets done, doesn't matter to me. You still got 2 weeks to do this, but I am keeping a log of everybody's data for each ecology class that I run, so we can see kind of how the temperature of the river has changed over time. We can see how the current of the river has changed over time, what the layout or the looks of the river are doing. So what I would really like you to do, so like right here, this was me this morning. I made this data point. So I made Joan and Jane, whatever. They're a lab group. I said today, the date, and then I put the water temperature of the Apple River at this exact point was 20 degrees. So everybody or every group should be coming into this Apple River water temperature, this Apple River Ecological Study Week 1. Click on this first tab for temperature, and every group should be punching in a data point for water temperature here. And then there's a graph right here that's going to pop up that is really trying hard to open up for me, but it's not working right now. That will show the progression of the water temperature of the Apple River long-term over however many years I run the ecology class or run this lab for. At the bottom, there's also a water current tab, and then there's also an abiotic and biotic observations data table that you can record all of your information in so that I can keep it for long term in this document. All of you do have editing rights to this document, but please make sure that you don't abuse it. Don't delete anything that's not yours, because I am saving this data for future ecology classes. And then we did week 2, where we focused more on the chemical analysis of the river. So we went down, we found dissolved oxygen, pH, dissolved phosphate, nitrate level, turbidity, and then the coliform bacteria. So this should all be filled out. If for some reason you were missing this data because you were gone or something like, for any reason whatsoever, just email me, let me know, so we can I can get you some data to fill in this for the spot, so that you can still do your conclusion questions just like everybody else has done. Photos, again, photos got put on the wayside this year. It is what it is. And then I do have another doc here at the bottom where I would like you to punch this information in just like I had done for week 1. Different spreadsheet, but same general idea. As far as week 3 goes, we never got down to the river a third time because of the weather that we've had that comes with being in Wisconsin. It just didn't work out. So probably almost none of you have information written into this table. If you do, because I know some groups on week 2 had kind of finished and we're starting to move on to week 3, still would love to have you talk about that in your discussion questions at the bottom, but not required by any means. So as far as conclusion stuff goes for this one, there's only 5 conclusion questions. No like long paragraph, like 3 paragraph essays or analyses that I need. But question 1, I do want to make sure that I will talk about next week sometime to make sure that you get this, or we do a little refreshing on the different levels in the food web when it comes to like primary producers, primary consumers. That's biology level stuff, but I'll make sure that we touch on it again just so it's in the front of everyone's mind so that they can appropriately answer that question. But the rest of them you should be able to do using the data that you've had, using the observations that you've made. But that one will also be worth 10 summative points. So again, another good opportunity for you to get your grade up in a way that would very easily move you up several letter grades. When it comes to both of these projects, I'm in the same boat as you guys. I've been quarantined 4 times. I've been out. I get that there's a lot of stress going on in this school year. So when it comes to both projects, I'm going to be pretty lenient, more so than I am in normal years, but I'm still expecting you to take some responsibility. We've been doing this for a set amount of time, or quite a bit of time. And it's not a surprise to you that that this is going to be due. Like we've been aware, we've been preparing for this for a while. So just do the best you can for these 2 assignments. You're in a group, so you're not by yourself by any means. But yeah, I mean, if you have any issues or whatever, send me an email, hop in the chat. We can set up a Google Meet, whatever it takes. But we're getting down to the wire now. It's getting close to the end of the semester. Any questions on those 2 projects? People at home or people in the class, anything?
Any questions?
So because my voice is tired and because I'm sure you don't want to listen to me talk anymore, all I'm going to have you do for today is I did post a slideshow that talks specifically about mutualisms and how they develop. And I don't have it pulled up right now, but you can easily, know how to access it. So your responsibility for the next mod or 2 until 301 is to start going through that slideshow and taking some notes on it. There are some links that I would encourage you to pop into that have some pretty interesting articles and videos attached to them pertaining to mutualisms and how they evolve. But it's one of my shorter slideshows, so it shouldn't take you very long. But you put the time in, you put the effort in, you're going to get something out of it, like anything else in life. So you go ahead, get to work, and I will be up here if you have any questions at all.